Okay, we do not have any quasi-judicial public hearings or second readings or resolutions. So we are moving into our consent agenda, and we have approval of minutes of June 27th, July 3rd, July 11th, July 18th. Then we have 3 legal department, 1 resolution from the Florida League of Cities. We have 2 legal department invoices. We have 3 things under urban design. Have 1 item under the utilities department. So this is the consent agenda. First, I would ask any council members, do they have any items to pull from the consent agenda to be considered?
Yes. I'd like to pull D2, please.
D2, learn to sale proposal for temporary floating docks will be pulled and discussed as a standalone item. Anybody else? Okay, now would be the time if you would like to speak on the consent agenda. If you want to speak on D2, we could give you another chance for that one. So everything on the consent agenda except for D2, now would be the time if you'd like to speak on any of those items. Okay, seeing nobody rising, I would entertain a motion.
I'd make a motion to approve the consent agenda minus D2.
Second.
We have a motion, a second, to approve the consent agenda without D2. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried unanimously. So,
I have just a couple of comments about the Learn to Sail dock request. My personal experience brings me to this, and that is that several years ago, when I was involved with the yacht club across the harbor, the sailing group there decided they were going to put temporary floating docks in at the marina. And they were intended to be temporary initially, and they're still there. And in some cases, the docks were not properly maintained. The docks were not attached to the fixed docks the way they should be. And I just would like to have a little bit more, I guess, direct and succinct rules about the timeline that they're going to be in the marina or in the water, and where they're going to be stored when they're out of the water and so forth. I think that we need to do that for the aesthetics of the area, because that is a residential community across the street, and I just have a fear of having derelict docks sitting there in the water if they don't do what they're planning to do. And for some reason, if those docks stay in the water, they're going to have to be maintained.
I don't know if do we have a representative here?
Lisa Hannon, zoning official, for the record. Yes, we do have a representative from the Learn to Sail program here that might be able to help answer some of those questions.
Okay.
State your name for us, please. Thank you.
Good morning, David Johnston, Learn to Sail. This is part of the proposal that we brought to the city. I have hard copies for any of the council members if they wish. Let me start out by assuring you that the intention for the temporary docks is for our summer program. We are also buying a $1,000 set of wheels and axles so that these can be rolled in and rolled out. They're heavy enough that it's not something that we plan to do often, but it certainly is a safety issue for children and adults boarding the boats as opposed from the ramp itself or from in the water and waist deep water. As far as storage goes, the docks that we're purchasing are 60 inches wide, 10 feet long. We're purchasing 2 of them. And so, you know, that's about $6,000. And they've got an 8-year guarantee so that these are not just floating barrels and platform, but these are made for docks. They have special conical bottoms so that they resist, you know, twisting and floating as people walk on them. It's also something that the kayakers can use. You can see the blue marks are the size of the 2 docks and where we propose to put them. And the wheels are big wheels on big axles that attach on either side. we're still in the experimental stage because we haven't purchased them yet, but we believe that we can put a set of wheels on each float and just bring it all out as an entire unit. They link together. You'll have a safety rail and everything else that we would need for accurate safety. And the space that those floating docks take up will actually fit on the grass right in front of the boats. Or we could put them behind the boats. But they're not so big that they wouldn't just fit in the very same place that the boats are stored. We have hopes that maybe we can do an occasional program for 2 weeks when schools break in the fall and in the spring. And we'd like to maybe use them if we can, but until we have more experience moving them in and out, our main contention right now is just for the summer group. We do about 100 kids every summer and teach them how to sail, and we do it in an intensive 10-week course. We believe that the docks are capable of being in the water for 10 weeks without an issue. But we've also designed it because we never know about that occasional storm, and we need to be able to remove them and get them out of there so they're not floating and beating around. They have some ulterior purposes too down the road. We know that we may not be able to stay in Bayfront forever, and we don't know where we would go as a temporary home while things are changing. But we thought, well, if we have the floating docks and the city gives us permission to use the little area next door where the floating docks are that the city owns, that we don't want to use the floating docks. They have their own day dock purpose. But if we were given that piece of water to use temporarily, then the floats could work there. If the county gave us permission to set up at the beach complex, we could use the docks to board the boats from the beach. Somebody had talked one time about perhaps setting them up at the Elks Club. The Elks Club has a seawall, and it would be impossible for us to use the boats against the seawall, but if we could tie the floats to their pier, that's another alternative. So we're looking at this not as a twofold purpose. Number one, to provide future access depending on the future of Learn to Sail, and the other thing is to improve safety for the summer camp. We have,
I appreciate all that. What do you do with all of the vessels right now if there's a storm coming?
well, we have two plans. First of all, the hurricane season that we have to prepare for is the period of right now until about the third week in September. That's the point at which 80% of all the storms in the last 100 years occurred. So we're preparing now. We take all the smaller boats and we've put them inside the Bayfront building in the little fireside room that we rent from the city. The larger boats on the trailers, we have two options. We have 3 sailboats on trailers and 2 safety boats on trailers. The safety boats have traditionally been stored at Public Works when we're not in sail mode operation, and hopefully we can do that. The other thing is we have purchased land anchors so that we could literally anchor the trailers to the ground and strap the boats to the trailers so that everything stays in place even in the event of a storm. With the floats, we'd not only have them anchored, but we'd also have them tethered. We'll have them tethered whether they're out in the water, even though they're temporarily stable. When you have a big storm, you just don't want to take a chance of losing an $8,000 product.
Sure.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I have two questions. First of all, it's a great program. I have a grandchild that's been through the program, and it's a good asset for the community as a whole. I think the question is it's an aesthetic question, And I haven't really heard you answer that specifically. I understand the storm and so forth. So the question would be, the way I would pose the question is, where will you store the docks? You've explained a little bit of that, so that aesthetically it fits in and blends in with the community and the park. And also, when camp is over with, will the docks be pulled up the very next day? Will they be pulled up within 5 days? Will they be pulled up within 10 months?
Well,
What would be the protocol?
yeah, I would say right now, we're through with our summer camp program the second week in August. We will probably extend it another week or two to help incorporate Northport youth that's, their schools close a little bit, or open a little later. So it certainly would be the month of August, and it would likely be the week after the end of summer camp.
Okay, but if you, say you had a program in the winter, because there was a big break and you wanted to have a
Right.
short little program, you're gonna put the docks out for that week or two, how long at the end of the program will you secure?
We likely do our cleanup and security the week after every session is over. For instance, the week after our summer camp ended this time, we had our Hurricane Preparedness Day. Everybody came down, all the boats were moved inside, and you wouldn't think they'd fit, but not only they fit, but we still have room for tables and chairs and conduct meetings in there, and we're able to stack them inside. And smaller boats are easier to maneuver. The 3 larger boats are on trailers, and they're already strapped to the trailers, but we've not put the anchors in the ground yet. And we can do that. We've got a new set of anchors that is supposed to be rapid installation. We've purchased them, but haven't tried them yet. But according to the instructions, you can set an anchor in 10 seconds as opposed to the previous hour and a half it used to take us. So one of the thoughts was, we can anchor them there very easily. It's sight unseen and everything is sort of contained underward. But if it appears to be an incredibly high tide, then we would probably want to move them and re-anchor them somewhere else.
Okay, so again, just to paraphrase though, to me, one of the emphasis, I understand all of your protocol and how that's all gonna work. But the emphasis is we're investing a lot of money into this park and in this neighborhood, so we wanna maintain the aesthetic issue. And as a good neighbor, and you understand it, and I'm just saying that I think that's what we really need to be able to address.
I do. Right on the side of the building is a niche in the building where the boats are stored. In front of that is the city's trash containment area for that building. So this is completely, I don't think you can see it at all from the street side.
Okay.
The floats, when they're stored on the ground, will be about this high, and not as high as the boats, so I don't think you could see them, certainly very easily.
Just need to be clear about this.
Yeah, and I've got plans of the floats so you can see what they look like, and.
I'm okay, you don't have to,
Okay.
I'm not your adversary here, really.
Oh, no,
I'm
I
just
just,
being clear.
yeah. So the floats are 10 by 20 by 22. And
We were
on
provided
the
some
wheels are-
photos in the presentation of the docks and the wheels. We've got that. So I think we have some people who would like to speak on this item, so if you could just hang around for more questions, if there are some, after we hear from whoever would like to speak.
Good morning, Mayor, council members. Tom Cavanaugh, City of Punta Gorda. Since I retired from city council, I started to look around for something to do. One of the things I found interesting was to work with Learn to Sail and get some of these kids out on the water and teach them how to sail. Now, in order to get into some of these boats, or get into most of these boats, they have to be in 2.5 to 3 feet of water. And to watch the instructors, of which I am probably one of the younger ones, try and climb onto these boats, it's not a pretty sight. So these floating docks will greatly facilitate that issue. I appreciate your support. Thank you.
Anybody else like to speak on the Learn to Sail dock presentation proposal? Nobody else?
I just have a comment. I do support the program. Please don't misunderstand my comments. My comments were simply meant due to the aesthetics of the area. We've had some complaints from residents in the area that the properties down at that end of the park are not being maintained as well as they could be, and I just have a concern about the aesthetic
Yes.
side of things. But certainly, safety is paramount. That is absolutely the most important thing, and Mr. Kavanaugh, I totally agree with you. I think we have to do what we can to make sure everybody's safe when they do this program. And it's a wonderful program that helps a lot of kids in the community, so I would make a motion to accept the proposal.
Is this the same group that you spoke of earlier?
No, but they're all kind of they're kind of cross-tied to
Well,
each other.
this is the first group that we've had that's been the best organized, I can tell you.
Yeah.
So that this, yes.
I
very
just
exciting.
wanted a little assurance that, that there are precautions being made for storage of the units themselves, and especially in the event of a hurricane and that kind of thing. So I'm satisfied with the answers, and I support it.
So we have a motion, a second.
second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried unanimously. Okay, now we're through with the consent agenda. We will move into the regular agenda, which is quite robust today. So this would be the time to comment on a lot of items. And I will announce again that 8A, which is new business, proposed developers agreement for Riverside Drive wastewater force main project, has been continued to September 17th. That will not be heard today. So citizens' comments, regular agenda items only, which would be, under budget, we have the waste treatment plant generator. We have additional harbor access land purchase. We have purchase of city-owned property of Taylor Road by Robert N. McQueen. Costs associated with security enhancements at city facilities. Discussion regarding creation of an assistant city manager position. Purchase of cell phones for use by city council members. We have the Ponce de Leon redesign update. Then under new business, we have, A will not be heard, but we have 3 event permits, Big Orange, Blackwater Country Jam, and Zirkus Circus. And then under the city attorney, we have the settlement of Winter Park Dodge. We have a settlement agreement for Fishville, and we have approval of a second amendment to the agreement with Fishville. And we also have support for local state of emergency regarding red tide. So those are all the items, and citizens' comments starts now. Please come to this podium. Well, you can use either one. Just take turns if people do line up on either one, on either side. State your name. You have 3 minutes. Speak on any regular agenda items. No way. Somebody's got to come up. Yay!
Wendy Young. I live in the bird section of Punta Gorda Isles. My comment is regarding the financing of this. I know the council may think that this is already a settled issue, but I am opposed to setting a special assessment for only the residents of the bird section for the cost of the bird cut. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, everybody. Bill Stamp from the Bird Section. I want to thank council for getting us this far. You've done a great job, city manager also, and your sports staff. I really appreciate what you've done. One of the things I think is great is the safety part of this. It's not all about the $500 or $600, $700 it is. I think it's great for all the community. The fishermen coming in from Alligator Creek, they can come into the Isles, they can fish in there. I think it's great. I remember I had a group 5, 6 years ago. We got together and we went with Howard and Carolyn, I think. And we come up with this idea, hoping it would work. We thought it'd be done in 2 years. 5, 6 years later, we're getting there. I think we need to move forward with this. You guys have taken it so far. We had kickback. We had people not wanting it. We appreciate their contributions to their ideas. It made it work, whatever you done. And I think we need to move forward with it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Regular agenda items. Please stand up and make your way to the podium. Okay, seeing none, we're gonna move into the budget items, which first is award to Florida Design Contractors for the replacement of the water treatment plant generator.
Good morning, Ann Heinen, Procurement for the record. This is approval for award to Florida Design Contractors of Lake Park, Florida for the replacement of the water treatment plant generator. The award would be $430,000. That includes the award to the vendor plus a $5,000 not to exceed allowance for FPL utility fees or if they are incurred to be the contingency budget. The department is also requesting a contingency budget to be utilized by, for change orders or unforeseen issues for conflicts or errors in plans.
Is there any contingency written into this? Or is that additional 50,000?
That's an additional 50,000.
So what was the original contingency?
There wasn't,
There was no
there was
additional
no additional,
contingency.
No original.
Is that normal, that we don't have any contingency written in?
Marion Pace, procurement manager for the record. In several of the engineers' estimate of probable cost, they do have a contingency written in there. Generally, in a lot of the higher dollar contracts, you will request sometimes like a 5 to 10% contingency for any unforeseen conditions. And that is only for city-approved change orders for like in unforeseen circumstances. So that is common. It's not automatically put on the purchase order so that the contractor doesn't think they get $50,000 extra. That amount is added to a PO through the change process as it's required.
So you don't have to come back?
No.
Okay. Questions, other questions?
I have a question.
Yes.
This will be for Tom. Since this is a replacement generator, I'm just curious if we have a feel for the approximate hours on the present generator and what the hours of usage that we've used on the present generator that we're replacing, and do we have a projection on the durability of hours for a new generator?
Yes. Have all of that right here.
Okay.
The generator that's in place now is either mid-1980s or early 1990s. It is required by code to be tested once a month under load for a period of, I believe it's 3 hours. The rule has recently changed. We have certainly done that, so once a month times 3 hours at a minimum plus the usage on it. This generator failed during Hurricane Charlie. In 2005, it ran for a while and then it pooped out. We did a deal with the hospital and we got one of their spare generators and we used that for the duration of the recovery for Hurricane Charlie. We did some repairs on the generator. It has just absolutely outlived its life cycle. I had hoped to, and originally when the city manager and I discussed this, tie this project in with the groundwater RO, but delays in the groundwater RO with the upcoming hurricane seasons, what we saw with Irma, I wanted to get backup power in there sooner than later. Knock on wood, during Hurricane Irma, we did not have to use the generator. We never lost power at the water treatment plant, but even had we used it, it only operates about 70% of the equipment. It was never designed for 100% of the equipment. The new generator, and we're 2 or 3 years behind schedule on the new generator because at the time we went out originally to bid, EPA came out with a new air restriction on generators called Title IV, which for the city to comply, the generator would have cost $4 million instead of $1 million with the restrictions that EPA put on emissions from generators. So, and the reason for the cost increase, there was only one company that was building a generator that met Title IV requirements, and that was in Germany. So none of the American generator power companies at the time even had a design for a generator that would meet Title IV requirements. That has all since been sorted out. Companies are now complying with Title IV. It took about 3 years for the price to come down and for it to become affordable. We pulled it
about 3 years ago because the price was just ridiculous for the power. And now we're there. We expect the new generator to meet or exceed, we expect it to last 30 years under normal routine testing, as well as any loads we put, under real usage. Modern generators are just marvels anymore. They
Are far
last and
more
last and
durable, yeah.
last. Yes.
So Tom, will this power RO in the?
Yes.
It will.
It's designed to run both, we're designed to be able to make water with both facilities under generator load, yes.
Excellent.
And that's part of it.
Any other questions?
Well, still have one more. So is this generator a single generator or system, or is it a 2 or 3 unit?
One system.
One generator.
It's different switching gear, though.
Okay.
And part of the cost is in the switching gear, which is horribly expensive.
Yes, more so than the
Switch
diesel.
gear, right.
Okay. I just wanted to be clear and let
Yeah.
it be known.
Yeah, no, it's excellent.
Clean.
And we've spent, I appreciate getting to tell the story because we have spent 3 or 4 years coming to this point in time to replace that generator.
Yeah, and typically in customers that I had in industry, they typically got 25 years out of a unit, and then it became parts availability and other issues too, so.
Right.
If I may, I'd like to go back to the contingency. I'm not sure I'm okay with the $50,000 contingency. Why would we not bid this out for a not-to-exceed amount?
The contingency is for if we make any changes that unforeseen as we're installing it, something we got to do slightly differently. That's why sometimes there's not contingencies. If we're 100% set that we're going to nail 2 boards together, the nails aren't going to bend, and we got all the material we need, we wouldn't do a contingency. And we felt pretty certain on this, so we came in and added at the end, just because it is a very technologically complex piece of equipment. This isn't something that the contractor can say, oh, well, we've got to do it differently and we're going to tap into the contingency. This is for changes the city requests. I don't know if that helps or clarifies.
Kind of.
Kind of.
I mean, it's just a lot of money, and it concerns me that we wouldn't already know what our fixed costs going into this were gonna be.
Well, we do. We do. And it is unusual. I totally agree. The reason we didn't ask for it is we spent 3 years studying this generator. We know generators in our sleep now because of this purchase, so we felt pretty comfortable that there aren't gonna be any additional costs. And that's why it was tacked on at the end just as a safeguard.
And basically, you're looking at a 3% safeguard.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Motions?
I motion that we move forward.
A second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the award agreement to the Florida Design Contractors as written in the agenda. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried unanimously.
Thank you.
Next, we have additional harbor access, PGI Bird section cut-through land purchase.
What I will do is go through the contract for the land purchase, and then the next item will be the Taylor Road land purchase. After we're done with those, our consulting engineer, Hans Wilson, is here, and he can provide an update on the permitting, although we have the permit, but give a little update, and then I would like to make a couple of comments on what happens if you do approve the land purchases, what happens next. But I'd like to do that afterwards.
Okay.
So, what you have in front of you is, based on the last council discussion, back on May 2nd, we went back and discussed with the property owner. You need to revise your purchase contract, which he has done. He's requesting that we pay $440,000 for the land needed for the bird cut-through, the additional harbor access. $44,000 will be deposited in an escrow agent within 10 days after today, if it's approved. And that offer will be valid until August 31st. The city will pay cash for the property with no financing contingency. We will then do a title insurance. We will pay for title insurance, title evidence. We do a title search, and this is a standard real estate contract. The contract is contingent on the issuance of the fill and dredge permit for the navigational channel, which we do have. Either party can be released of further obligations if we do not receive the permit within 12 months subsequent to the effective date of the contract, but we do have the permit. The contract is contingent upon a simultaneous closing of the Taylor Road site. Closing will be within 60 days of the permit issuance. So since we have the permit, I guess it's within 60 days. The city will prepare a survey of the property within 30 calendar days subsequent to issuance of the permit, so that's within 30 days. And the seller's remaining parcel, there is some land that the seller will still own, shall not be included in any canal maintenance district, which there's no intention to. And any future construction of boat docks and ramps shall be allowed, provided they are in accordance with the city's land development regulations. So basically, he's saying that with the remaining land, if we would like to put docks there, if they meet our code, he can put docks there. So that is the purchase contract that you have in front of you, and it's for your discussion.
Well, I have to jump forward to probably the part that you were gonna put at the end to get some clarification here. When it says, because we have the fill and dredge permit for the navigation channel, we have that in our hand, we have that approved. And then it says, either party can be released of further obligations if such permit is not issued, which it has been, within 12 months. So what would we expect anything to stand in the way of being able to construct this if it's all approved? Or was
No.
that language he wanted in there, or that we wanted in there, or how did that come about?
Well, when the contract was put together, we didn't have a permit,
True.
so he was saying that if you get
If
one.
it doesn't come about,
If it doesn't come out in 12 months, either party can back out.
okay, so that's kind of water under the bridge, so to say. Okay, all right, that was my question. Any questions for Howard? No?
No, I think we've gone this far, let's get it done.
I would
mean,
agree.
Let's get it done. I will make a motion to approve the purchase agreement with Mr. McQueen.
I'll second it.
We have a motion, a second, and a
I'll
third,
wrestle you for it.
not a fourth, but a third, to approve the land purchase contract. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried unanimously. Okay, next we'll move into the next item, which is purchase of city-owned property at 5625 Taylor Road by Robert McQueen.
This was also discussed on May 2nd, and council requested a separate purchase contract for this particular piece of property on Taylor Road that the city has owned for quite some time, and we have absolutely no use for it. We have no projected use for it. Mr. McQueen proposes to purchase this property for $40,000. It will be paid at closing. The offer is contingent on an executed contract by August 31st. The buyer will pay cash with no financing contingency. The buyer will pay for title evidence, same as we're doing for the other property. The buyer will determine within 30 days after the effective contract date at the buyer's expense whether the property is suitable for the buyer's intended use. The contract is contingent upon issuance of a fill and dredge permit for the navigational channel, which we have. If the permit is not issued within 12 months, either party may cancel the purchase contract, but again, we have the permit. The contract is contingent upon the simultaneous closing of the land purchase contract that you just approved, and the transaction shall close within 60 days of the permit issuance.
I just have to ask this question. Given that I've worked a lot with annexation, did you ask the question of, should you become contiguous to city property, would you annex into the city?
It was asked.
I know the answer because I know Mr. McQueen, so, but I had to ask. Thank you. It was the response that I expected.
Gary?
I just have to say that there's just one issue that does bring me disappointment about this transaction, and that's that Mr. Jay Buckley is not here to witness what's occurring today. So just to give a hurrah for Jay, and I hope we get her done.
Up there doing a happy dance.
So, well, then let's go forward. I'd like to move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the sale of the property to Mr. McQueen. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried unanimously.
And I would like to do a shout out to Mr. McQueen for his cooperative efforts
Yes.
in this.
Yes.
Because
Thank you, Bucky.
this took a lot of discussions.
And negotiation.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Before we move on, I just want to make sure that there is an clear understanding. Our contract to purchase did not include a feasibility study with the opportunity to terminate the contract if it turns out that it was determined the property wouldn't be adequate for our purposes. And we've done all that due diligence ahead of time, so it wasn't necessary. His contract does have a feasibility study, which gives him the opportunity to terminate this contract. Here's the only technical part that I need to bring out. Both contracts are contingent upon simultaneous closing of the two transactions. If in the unlikely event he determines after his feasibility study not to go through with this purchase, I want to make sure that that's not going to then prevent us from closing on the cut-through. And Howard, was there any discussion, with that, is there any possibility that he could give us a clarification that he'd waive the contingency in our purchase if it turns out that he decides not to move forward with his purchase as a result of his feasibility study? You know, if that came.
Well, it was never brought up because
Yeah.
he has every intention to purchase that property.
Yeah, and so, you know, I would hope then he might waive the requirement for the feasibility study, or at least acknowledge that if he decides not to go forward with this, that it doesn't, he'll waive the contingency in our purchase. Just, it's just a technical point.
So basically, though, this says that he wants to do the, like, environmental assessment, like, I would take that as like a core drill to see if it's something, and it's a 30-day, and usually if you're paying cash, you don't have to do anything like that. If you're going through a bank, you may, but
Yeah, I mean, you don't even need a feasibility study, but he requested one.
he did
So
check
he
that
reserves the
box.
right to terminate this contract, which is his right, that's fine. I just don't want, if in the unlikely event that he terminates the contract, that it doesn't screw up our purchase, which is contingent upon the simultaneous closing. So just a letter, Howard, from him acknowledging that if he decides to close, not to close on this one, that it won't affect our other. And I don't think that's gonna be difficult.
We can bring it up with him.
Yeah.
Okay,
I mean, he has every intention of.
No, I get that, I'm just doing my job.
because what you're saying is that the second box could have been checked, no feasibility study,
Correct.
but he gave himself 30 days.
Right. Which is prudent.
Okay, yes?
Yeah, well,
It should not be a problem. I just want that one tiny percent that I just noticed that he had checked the feasibility study. I didn't realize he had
Just
done that.
one comment, the purchase price of 440 was based on him buying that property.
yes, it was.
Yes.
So
But sure, but if it's his election not to, he can't get out of our agreement. We just need to make sure that there won't be any opportunity for him to change that if he decides not to go forward
But
with
my
his
point is,
purchase.
if he doesn't decide to go forward, then the purchase price of 440 should be 400.
I agree.
Back to the lands.
That's the catch-22 on it. Because we set that price knowing that he was purchasing the property to offset that difference.
Well, they're both contingent
Just
on
to
each other, so
complicate it.
it won't,
But we'll still own a $40,000 piece of property.
Yeah, but,
So,
and
so
we
our-
don't want
the-
to,
The
but.
point is we don't want to make, first of all, the likelihood of this scenario happening, Lynn, you had it right. Let's just get her done.
Right.
You're absolutely right there.
So just
And
talk to
I
him
think
and
we
get-
have to go forward, and if this issue happens, then we're still gonna have a $40,000 asset that'll be belonging to the city, that has a value to the 3 properties that surround it. We know that, they know that, we all know that. And, I think that we need to keep it simple at this point, with just one S, not 2.
Which is why I raised my comment after the vote. It's not, say that. It's just, it would be very helpful to have something in
I would
writing.
agree with Howard that knowing Mr. McQueen, he's very intent on acquiring this piece of property. It serves him, it's a great advantage to him to have this piece of property.
and if he's
on Taylor
planning to
Road,
do an
so-
environmental study, that's all he needs to say, is that, I did want to do an environmental, and,
We don't even need to worry about his
Right.
doing an environmental study. We just need to worry about him exercising his right to terminate pursuant
it.
to that. And we're not even worried about that, with the exception of it may screw up our ability to purchase the cut-through as it's provided for in in the contract, that they should be simultaneous.
okay, got it.
Okay.
Now we're going to have Hans Wilson, or you're gonna give a little
Yeah,
spiel?
Hans Wilson, from our consulting engineer, he was the one who, along with city staff, shepherded the permit process. So why don't you give us a quick update? You have some books with you?
I have a permit.
Oh,
Yeah.
For the record, my name is Hans Wilson. I'm a professional engineer, and my job or task for the city was to secure state and federal permits for the secondary alternative channel access to Punta Gorda Isles, also known as Bird Cut. And aside from some glitches with the Army Corps of Engineers, where we ended up with a third project manager after our file got shuffled off to the side, I'm pleased to announce that we have completed the job with basically the original design intact after a couple of challenges from some outside commenting agencies. And so with that, we've completed our tasks. I have the original signed here that I'll give to Mark, and he has a second copy in the notebook. And the only thing that I would, at this point, with the council's indulgence, ask is to possibly consider a more formal name for the waterway, since nobody likes Bird Cut and nobody likes the secondary access channel. And I would simply suggest calling it Buckley's Pass.
I agree. I agree.
So that's all I really have to offer at this point, but I'm welcome to answer any questions you might have.
I was gonna ask him.
Yeah, I have, I know this will cause you a chuckle. I've already had someone email me wanting to know how soon will the construction begin, so.
That's at the discretion of the council.
I know, that's why it's a chuckle. It's kind of like, well,
I was gonna
Yeah.
ask him, I was gonna ask him something.
Yes, Gary?
I would just like to say, I think that's a great name for it. I just, as I explained to a couple of other people over the course of the last week, I had to keep reminiscing that when we decided to finally go down this path, I almost had to put a dog leash on Jay because he knew it was gonna be done inside of 18 months. And as Mr. Stamp said, 5 years, and we're almost there. So, and we are, and I think that that would be very appropriate. He was very enthusiastic, and I think would be very, if with the indulgence of the rest of the council, a good name for this pass.
I would make a motion to that effect.
I'll second it. Let's get her done.
Yes.
So we have a motion and a second to name the waterway Buckley Pass.
Yes.
Buckley's
Spelled-
Pass.
Yeah, Buckley's Pass. Buckley's with apostrophe S?
Yes.
Yes.
Buckley's Pass. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried unanimously.
Just one quick comment to Hans. First of all, thank you. thank you for your diligence in getting this done. You deserve a gold medal, as I said to you in an email. Would you please share with everyone who's here the smuggler's cut that it's now going to be allowed to stay open?
Sure. Amazingly enough, in our state permitting, with a certain amount of work taking place in the aquatic preserve, I anticipated that we would have a significant amount of public interest that we would have to jump through. And one of those was the potential of shutting off Smuggler's Pass because of the shallow water nature and the fact that there was a lot of boaters that were traveling through there at planing speed, creating some safety issues. The federal agencies, while the state was okay with it, to some extent, the federal agency, the Corps of Engineers, was not real keen about limiting navigational access. And it really wasn't a problem because we had a lot of public testimony saying, you know, that's our jungle cruise for our community. So worked with both agencies, and what we ended up with is some signage that would be placed at both entrances that warns the boater of shallow water, reminds them that there is in fact a City of Punta Gorda manatee protection plan in place that limits boating speeds to slow speed out to the -6 foot contour in Charlotte Harbor. A lot of people probably don't realize that. And so what that does is those people that are anxious to get out into the waterway and go fishing can go through Buckley's Pass. Those that want to take their friends and relatives for a jungle cruise into what is a natural winding water body, that will still remain open with some information regarding protection of manatees, you know, be cautious of your water depths, don't prop dredge, all those negative things that come from boating in shallow water.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we had an interesting question that was posed to at least one council member, and that is, if it gets approved today, do we start construction tomorrow? Well,
We need a contractor. Are we doing this in-house, Mark? Is that the plan?
I know we're all going out there with shovels and we're going to
Lost some
start
hair.
digging.
everybody still needs to be patient. We have a lot of work still to do. And so let me just say a few words about what we have to do. Our team has to get together again. They already started to do that yesterday. We have to put together all of the parcels that are going to be included in the assessment. We have to make sure that we double-check so that each parcel, based on the methodology that we approved, how many water access units will be allowed or permitted, allowed to be built per parcel. All that information has to be sent to Charlotte County so that they can start formulating the assessment district. Now, fortunately, our consultant who did the economic study has a lot of that information and will be sending it to us. Over this next few months, we will be advertising for our intent to assess. It's an intention to assess, like we've done other assessment areas. That has to be accomplished before the end of December. At the same time, we will be working with our legal attorney who helped with the methodology, and our paralegal will be working with her to put together an assessment resolution, similar ordinance resolution, similar to what we did with Burnstone Isles, electric undergrounding. We will advertise that and hold a public hearing for the assessment probably in the February, March timeframe when everybody is back and in town. So that's February, March to hold the formal assessment hearing. We've thrown out there a projection based on Hans Wilson's earlier estimates of what the cost of the project's going to be, and based on the number of water access units, it must have been at least a half a year ago, maybe more, we estimated about $500 $500 and something dollars, $500 per water access unit at that time. That number could go up or down. So don't rest on that number, because we have to fine tune the cost. Included in the assessment will be all of the costs we've already loaned to date, the legal fees, the economic study, putting it on the tax roll. There are administrative fees, project management fees. So we will fine tune those costs for the assessment hearing. We also have to eventually bid out the project. All these words are to say, be patient. We cannot start tomorrow. Actually, we can't start, frankly, until we have that assessment public hearing in the February, March timeframe, formally adopt the tentative assessments, so we can get on with it.
So does that mean we'll be done by March 31st?
Yes, yeah. Didn't say what year.
I was just gonna say that. I was absolutely just gonna say that.
Okay, so please, get the word out, be patient. We still have a lot of work to do on this.
So you'll be hearing more agenda items to come on the assessment district and the methodology. And those will be public hearings. So with that, we're going to take a 10-minute break.
Oh, thank heavens.
So we'll be back at about 10:51. 10:51, we'll be back in session.